What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. We're recording on the Nikon ZF on the Kit 24-70 f4 lens in rich tone portrait, which looks kind of weird on the screen, but we'll see how this looks in real life. This is kind of an experiment. Anyways, the reason why I clicked on this video is to talk about something we've been talking about. Let's talk about the internet before. It's the Ricoh GR versus an iPhone, just a regular iPhone, because they both kind of offer a benefit in that they both fit in your pocket in a very easy way. They have differences, but I wanted to see if I were to take out some of those ergonomic differences, what the actual results look like and the shooting experience is like. And it's kind of interesting. So I just shot some photos this morning, some random photos, and that's what you saw earlier. And so, well, before I get into the photos, let's talk about the cameras themselves and just in terms of what they kind of offer and what some of the benefits are. Starting with this Ricoh GR right here, this offers you the actual tactile feel of a camera, right? It's got a little grip on it. You can put a little wrist strap on it. It's got an actual shutter button and wheels and dials, stuff like that. And you can put a flash on top of it. It just gives you this experience. And it's a lot more ergonomically pleasing than an iPhone, that's for sure. But at the same time, there's a lot of negatives that come along with this as well. For example, it is a separate second device, whereas your phone is always with you. We'll talk about in a second. And it lacks some features that the iPhone has, which I'll talk about in a second. And the focusing isn't as good as the iPhone, candidly. It doesn't really shoot video. It doesn't allow you to upload into Lightroom right away and post right away. It doesn't have some of the computational effects that another camera has. That kind of stuff. But on the flip side, this camera does allow you to use the built-in ND filters, or there's a new one of these out called HDF or something where you can put a diffusion filter that's built in. You can get one of those. You can also put an adapter on the front of this and put real filters on front of it. There's a lot of things you can do with this camera maybe to mount more than just the iPhone. Now I know you can put filters on front of the iPhone, but like graduated ND filters and stuff like that just fit more naturally on this kind of a camera. It has a built-in tripod screw right there, 1/4-20, if you guys can see that. Whereas the iPhone, you have to put an adapter. It's all possible with the iPhone. There's a lot of benefits to this Ricoh GR3, and there's some disadvantages. On the flip side, on the iPhone, it's always with you. And like I mentioned, you can upload into Lightroom right away. You can still shoot in RAW. It takes video. It has computational tricks like, long exposure, like what's it called, like a night mode. So it takes long exposures, but it does it in a really good way. Macro mode built in, just kind of like the iPhone does. It uses DNG files just like the Ricoh does, I should say. So in Lightroom it works good. There's a lot here, and this offers a lot more, but it also gives up a lot. The shooting experience kind of sucks, right? Like, how do you grip this thing? Touching buttons on your screen, manual controls is a pain in the butt. There's a lot of negatives to the iPhone too. And I felt like I had a lot more control, exposure control with the Ricoh GR than I did over something like this. But that's not to say it is possible. There are apps that let you have exposure control on the iPhone. I don't know if they work as good as the natural iPhone app, but there are people shooting movies on iPhones, and so it's obviously possible. And that's kind of what inspired this whole thing. I'm working on a project. It's called Somewhere Else, and it has to do with the invasion of cell phones in people's lives. And I wanted this constant approach, and it kind of requires a bit of a street photography feel to it, and so this camera was what I was naturally thinking. But then I got to thinking, what if there's some irony in fact that I shoot that whole thing on the iPhone? What would the image quality look like? Right? Because I can get away with a lot shooting the iPhone as a camera because people are used to seeing it. People are walking around taking selfies. Cell phones are always in people's hands. But when a camera pops out, people are kind of aware, right? Even if it is a little point and shoot camera like this, they want to know what's going on. And the other thing that inspired this is that if you've seen some of the work from Joe Greer, he puts on his Instagram page, he's shot a lot of iPhone stuff, video and photos, and they look really, really good using some kind of filters and presets and other editing things that he's done. And so I just went out to shoot these photos real quick, and again, they're nothing special. And here's what I basically found. Starting with the chair photo. The chair photo I shot at, I think, a 1/100th f2.8 on the Ricoh GR3, and it ended up being ISO 6400. The file's a lot noisier and it lacks detail or I guess I'd have to run it through like an AI algorithm, denoising, to make it look sharp, right? And you can tell it's got different tones and stuff like that. And I did run these through Lightroom, so the editing is a little different. The iPhone did the exposure trick, and it seems to grab more of the highlights and shadows and bring more to the photo. But you can still kind of see there's a lack of detail because it's doing the long exposure thing. The iPhone does a good job, but and I would say in this instant, I had more wiggle room in the iPhone file than I did the GR file. So there's that one. Shooting the kind of the shadows on the wall here, I think they both look good. I actually prefer the way the GR looks. Just naturally has a different tonality to it, and I prefer that. The next photo here, looking at the gnome is interesting. They both have a ton of detail. Again, I like the way the GR's colors look. I wonder if I could get the iPhone to look that way. And the fall off, obviously, with the APS-C sensor of the GR and the f2.8 looks a little bit more pleasing than the iPhone, but that's only in comparison. I think in reality you could take either one of these photos and be fine. And I think that's one of the strong suits, right? With the smaller sensor of the iPhone, as you get closer to it, the fall off is still kind of there, and so it looks pretty good still. Shooting macro, I thought that the Ricoh GRs looked a lot better. The iPhone can do it. I think the GR can get a little closer. I did screw this photo up though, I'll be honest with you. This is shot at ISO 4000. It didn't need to be because I accidentally left the shutter at 1/2500th of a second, and I could have brought that down and brought the ISO way down. So that's my mistake. But again, if you run that through a denoise, I would say that there's more detail and the macro mode is better on the Ricoh GR3, but both are capable and both are possible. And then last but not least is that little self-portrait selfie that I took. Oddly enough too, there's a ton of detail in both of them. The Ricoh GR3 just happens to have an insane amount of detail. Like you can see every single little pore and wrinkle and crevice on my face. And again, the fall off is more natural, and I do prefer the colors out of the Ricoh GR3 there. But in saying that, the iPhone looks good, and when you're shooting raw, you can edit to your heart's desire to make things look however you kind of want. And I would say that both kind of do the job. And so what I'm trying to say is I think the iPhone's a far more versatile tool than the Ricoh GR3 because it offers the ability to put it right in Lightroom and post instantly from there. It's a device that you carry with you anyways. It shoots videos, and of course it does a lot more. But if you're going to ask a photographer, somebody that needs to have manual control in exposure simulation or exposing, and somebody that likes the tactile feel of dials and wheels and that kind of stuff, I would say the GR3 is still the obvious choice. And you combine it with the fact that it has built-in ND filters, and you can clip filters to the front of it to do some more stuff there. You can have snap focus for kind of that street approach. I'd take the GR3. But it's interesting because you don't really need it. And I would say, especially if you're a street shooter, you could get away if you're shooting raw on the iPhone. And you get away with probably more photos than you normally would because people are used to seeing iPhones. So I guess my question for you guys is would I continue my project or do my project, this somewhere else project, with the iPhone or the GR3? What do you guys think makes more sense? Is there an irony in using the iPhone? Do I get better shots because people aren't aware with the iPhone? Or is the GR3 the way to go because I have more exposure control? Let me know what you guys think in comment section below on the pictures I showed. Thanks, guys.